Welcome back YouTubers to my channel of An Everyday Life of an Aspie. If you're new to my channel, I welcome you with open arms. I'm Aspie and I'm basically all about creating mental health and awareness versus basically sharing you my life stories and experiences with Autistic syndrome, OCD and the like, so that you can get a clearer picture about me as a person with Autistic syndrome and the like that comes under the mask of these diagnoses that I briefly will share when we go along. As you're fully aware though, just to bear in mind though, that many people do make the mistake that people with Autistic syndrome are all the same, you know, on that spectrum scale, but they're not. Every person comes on various forms of it, regardless of their characteristic traits versus just their, you know, everyday general habits that they may have and whatnot. But after all, despite the labels, we are still human after all. Also, just to bear in mind also, basically, just to let you guys know that I also talk about basically mental health awareness versus also just everyday topics based on my life experiences and my training of everyday topics that may come about that you guys may want to hear about, that even though you may think it's not all about for you, but bear in mind that, as well as the tips and advice that may come with it, regardless of the mental health issues that I may address, or regardless what it may be. Okay, even though, as I said so many times before, if you do feel that some of the topics that I share with you does ring back warning signs of some of the warning signs and symptoms of certain mental health issues or whatever it may be that I feel close to my heart to share with you, or hopefully that you can seek professional help for yourself or for your family friend or whoever that you're worried about, or second opinion, regardless of what it is. Because, put a disclaimer, I'm just an everyday Joe blog, just sharing my life story regardless what it may be, and you know, hopefully maybe we can just connect one way or another. So without further ado, basically I'm doing the how-to guides right now. I'm going to call them, or just the how-tos for you all, hopefully to understand as it goes piece by piece at this point of time, so that hopefully that, you know, it's easy to follow and that it won't, as they say, bore you and whatever else. So let's hopefully keep some of this short and sharp and as entertaining as I can for you, regardless what it may be of the topics. Humbly apologise if I do stumble in some parts. I'm just trying to remember some parts from my experiences versus everything else that I've been through myself. So this one's a how-to basically on how to talk to an autistic child. The first part basically I was talking about is like method 1, which was communicating effectively with an autistic child, which is pretty much important, basically how we go about it, because every autistic child is different in our day and age, regardless of the, you know, non-verbal versus verbal, and just making sure that we include them in our everyday activities and not exclude them, and basically learning to meet up with their needs regardless what it may be, being it mute, being it what have you. So this one's, as I said, supporting other people's needs. So let's begin this. Method 2. Okay, step number 1 is stay on top of the child's treatment plan. It's just also important, like when it comes down to any individual. Stay highly involved with your child's therapist and make sure to include your child in conversations when appropriate. It is very important to remember that your child processes information differently, so you cannot expect them to communicate exactly like what others tend to do. Don't let this become a reason to isolate them. Rather, you should actually involve and encourage them to do better, or not better as such, but just encourage them to a point that is best meet your standards. Even though just don't make it too much of a high standard for them, because obviously, you know, at the end of the day, you know, some parents and just people in general make that mistake when they have someone with special needs, that they have a high expectation level for the child, even if they are gifted or what have you, and sometimes it can exhaust us to the point that we should be, you know, basically, you know, competing when we shouldn't be, because we know that every person with special needs will be at a different wavelength of education versus learning and whatnot. Tip number 2, right, for your method 2, or step number 2, whatever way you want to look at this as you're following me with this, is teach them how to pick up or get around skills like eye contact. Okay, as we know basically that, as I said before, some of us autistics may not be able to read body language, body cues and the like. Some of us will be able to, but then again, if we make eye contact or not, that's up to us. But then again, you can't force it upon the child to directly make eye contact with you. Some people may think, regardless of basically, even though they say body language versus eye contact and everything in the way of communication is important to associate with you, just bear in mind that, you know, if some of us autistics ain't directly looking at you when you communicate, and we're looking down at the ground or some other way that indicates, or maybe you're assuming that, as we're stimming, maybe fiddling with our thumbs or whatever, that you think that we're not paying attention. Bear in mind that we are paying attention. Sometimes it just takes longer for us to just process that information that they're giving us. So a little sharp burst maybe of information is given here, just to bear in mind. Also, another classic example, or to teach them, you could actually maybe teach them, the autistic, child, about the importance of eye contact while being very patient and sensitive to them, because obviously many people make the mistake, as I said before, making that assumption, right, he's not listening to me, why bother talking to him? And that's kind of cruel in some ways of what I've seen in this day and age of some people when I've been trying my hardest to socialise with people. It's like I said before in my socialisation series, I recommend you guys to look into this, but I'll briefly say this, that it has taken me a long time to actually gain that confidence and everything else. Many people may think I'm cool, calm, collected and confident in the way I speak and whatnot, regardless of my language ability may be different to others around me. But then again, many people tend to think that I'm just a bit technical, which I humbly apologise, but that's just how all my words are up there, trying to break it down a bit further for you guys to maybe, I don't want to put it in a putting off way to you guys, but baby kind of words if need be, that makes sense. Please forgive me for that. I just don't mean to say that at all, but that's how I look at it, based on my, as I said, my experiences when I've been learning to try and socialise more with people. As I said also, when it came down to my socialisation with people, regardless of that confidence versus my anxiety, social anxiety and all that, it takes a lot out of me, and I'm guessing most autistics or autistic holistics that I have been talking to on Facebook or outside Facebook will actually tend to agree with me that sometimes that regardless of it all, we do need a bit of compassion, understanding and empathy with people, okay, because at the end of the day it's all about making ends meet for the both of us, not just for the neurotypicals but for the autistics as well. So it's just a matter of the yin yang, so to speak, which I don't like to use much of, but that's a clear example here about balance of give and take, so to speak, as well, maybe we could call it. Anyway, a tip I could give you here for this though, however, maybe you could find ways to work around some difficult skills that some autistics may have and just work around it. A classic example I could share with you all is many autistic people are unable to listen and speak while when forced to make eye contact as shared. So maybe an autistic child could look and sit at someone's chin maybe to indicate that they're listening, or the eyebrows of the other person that's actually directly speaking to us. So it is appear that we are making eye contact. Okay, so don't feel threatened if we tend to look not directly at the eye. If we focus on either the eyebrow, the chin or the nose or what have you, then it will make it appear that we are actually making eye contact. So just bear in mind that that's pretty much one of the skills some of us autistics lack on, of making that direct eye contact with you. Okay. Number 3, last but not least, is explain these tips to your child's babysitters, teachers or whoever that is associating with your child, so that hopefully this will actually be in a given, so that there won't no misunderstandings, misconception or assumptions about what the child is actually doing, because many people make that classic mistake, obviously, that despite we're not making that eye contact again here, so it's that classic example with me when I used to socialise and try to come out of my shell after finding out what was wrong with me, and that still to this day I still struggle, but I'm getting better. I'll admit, focusing on that weakness on my own. But when it comes down to it, eye contact all the way, and just hopefully without that hopefully comes some form of understanding in that situation. That's why how I feel at the moment with special education, if you call it that, if we call it here that in New Zealand, that in some ways, with some ways of form of teaching ain't always recommended for, you know, people with special needs of certain types. That's why we need to branch out more and maybe understand more about the child's development versus their child's brain capacity versus everything else, you know, so to speak, if that makes sense. This will obviously be a great way to foster your child's development if you do actually frequently interact with, you know, those babysitters, teachers or whoever, so that they can understand their situation. And then also the key importance here is get involved at your child's school, obviously, because this is really important to keep the communication practices consistent with the teachers and other caregivers on the spectrum or not on the spectrum, so that people can understand us and whatnot. So hopefully this makes sense to you all. Basically, with you all, I humbly apologise if it doesn't. I tried the best to explain this based on my experiences as well as just the tips and advice, you know. So hopefully it is a bit clear here for the short one. Give me the likes, the thumbs up for support and engagement. Comment below if I missed anything that maybe is important in this section of the method. I want maybe a bit more engagement from you all, be it autistic or not, basically, of how you go about this area and more of what I'm going to share step by step sort of thing on the how-tos and the speech-assist syndrome. And if you want to know more, which I'm gladly going to do this, so feel free to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, AspieAnswersAll. Feel free to subscribe to me if you haven't done so. Feel free to share these videos around to family and friends. Do what you love what you do. Until next time, thanks for the support, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Ciao for now.